Hello everyone, this is a quick Photoshop tutorial to talk a little bit about some of the basic elements, especially when working with our monument project and how we might use it. All right, so first of all, this is kind of what I'm going to make. I'll break this up into two so it's not so long, but here's the basics of how we go in. First and foremost, if we're working from images from Google, then we want to make sure your images are at least 1400 DPI in any of the smallest directions. All right, so that means the minimum of the smallest side is 1400, right? And that'll be a safeguard so that your images don't become pixelated in your presentations. So how do we do that? Let's go in to the Google and let's take a look at Google search. All right, my Google search for Washington Mall. Here's a little trick. If you go to settings, the little cog here, you can go to advanced search, right? After your title is in here, I typically go to image size and look for images that are bigger than 2 megapixels, okay? And that should ensure you get something pretty close. So when I scroll down here, when you click on an image, oh, here's the one I found, okay? And you hover over it, you see the pixel sizes. So we have 2500 by 1667. It's great. All right, so what you can do is I can just control click and copy the image. All right, then I'll go to Photoshop and I'm just going to do Command N, or you can do File, New. Okay, and when you've copied something from the internet, it will be in your clipboard, and so it'll ask you, do you want to create a file that's 2500 by 1667? Why, yes, I do. So let's create that. Okay, and I'm just going to do Command V to paste it in. And let's just hit Command minus to sort of reduce this down a little bit. Okay, so you notice what happens when we work with copy and paste in Photoshop. We have a background layer down here in the right. If you're looking for layers, you can search for it under Window if you don't see it. And then it pastes in this layer above it. Okay, if we hide that layer by turning off the eyeball, then it goes away and it can come back. If I were to erase part of this layer, okay, so let's just say, get rid of the Washington Monument and all of its reflection, okay, then it's literally cutting a hole in this image to reveal the white that's underneath, all right? And just to prove that, if I were to add, this is the paint bucket tool. I click down here on the background and I paint bucket this a nice pink color, and I bring back my layer. You can see that we can see through to that pink layer underneath, all right? Now, the other thing that's really helpful is if you have the history available. And again, if you don't see it, go up to Window and search for history there. You can go back some steps, right? So if I go back in history, it's like the undo button, but allows you to see that kind of like all the steps that you've taken. Okay, so let's talk about bringing an image into this. All right, so I think in our demonstration in class, we talked about looking for an apple. Let's do that. Okay, and if we again do an advanced search and we do larger than 2 megapixels, let's see what we get. All right, let's see, this one actually looks pretty good. I don't think that's a real image though. I never believe them when they're that large. Let's see what else I got here. Here we go. This is one. Okay, so let's do this. Control click, copy image, and let's paste this into our project. Go back to Photoshop, and we're going to paste this in. Oh, look at that. It pasted it above the background. If you down here, so I don't see it, right? So there's a hierarchy in our layers, which reveals what's on top. So if I take this layer 2 of the apple and I drag it on top of layer 1 here, then the apple will be revealed. Okay. Now it's bigger in size than our clipboard, right? Our window here. So I can move it around accordingly to get it more into view. This is the move tool up here. Okay, and you can move around layers when you're working with it. Okay, so what I want to do here is subtract the background. All right, now an easy way to do this is to go up to select and subject. Okay, so it's going to calculate what it assumes your subject is, and then it grabs that information. Now, before you work into this any further, if you wanted to add a little bit more information, like maybe I want a little bit more of this shadow, I can add to this marquee or the selection by going to edit in quick mask mode. Okay, but you see that the white is turned pink. That pink area is outside of our selection. The apple itself is inside of our selection. And we're going to use black and white with a paintbrush to add or subtract elements in. Okay, so first thing I see is this little area right here. So let's zoom in here and you see how it's cut into this section. So if I paint with black, and you can change the brush size here. So if I make us a little bit smaller brush size, the harder it is, the more the edge is going to be solid. The softer it is, you'll have a gradient or fade. So I'm just going to take this hard. Oh, let's see what happens when I paint. I need to flip this. Let's undo. White will add to your selection. Black will subtract from your selection. So I'm just going to take this and make that a little bit more apparent, which looks pretty good. Okay, so that cleans that side up. I'm going to go over here a little bit. I can see I need a little bit more over here as well. So this helps to clean that side up a little bit, which is good. And then if I want to add a little bit more here, maybe I'll use a soft brush so I get a gradient. Let's go from hard to soft, make this brush a little bit bigger, and I'll just like paint this in a little bit so I get a bit of a softer edge there, right? Something like that's okay. All right, now if we're happy with our view of this, then we can go to select and turn off edit in quick mask mode. Okay, now if I was working in a different window, I could just copy and paste this into my scene and it would be just copy the apple. But what I want to do is I don't want to delete the background, right? So what I need to do here is to select inverse. Okay, so now the opposite of the apple is selected, or the background is, and I hit delete. And when I hit delete, then I get everything out of view except for my apple, right? Hit Command D to deselect, or you can even just select the marquee tool and click outside somewhere. All right. Now, if I wanted to position this, I could do edit and transform. Okay. If you do free transform, then you can get this larger box, and I could scale this down a little bit. Oh, look at what's happened here. We have more of that white frame available. Let's just keep that where it is. I'm going to hit return so it scales it down. And then instead of going through that whole masking sort of situation, whatever, I can actually just grab this magic wand tool. Okay. And with a very low tolerance, like 12, or even in this case, lower like 6, I can click on this white area and it will select most everything. If it doesn't like this, I can click shift, select a little bit more, I can delete, deselect. Now all that white is gone. All right. So let's go back to our transform tool that we were using before to scale this. You can actually just hit Command T for free transform, and this allows you to scale accordingly. Now this is going to automatically scale in proportion, meaning keeping the ratio the same. If you wanted to change the ratio, you would have to hit shift. So if I wanted to make this a little taller, notice how it grows, okay? Or a little wider, it grows that way, right? So that's how you can change the proportion, or it'll automatically keep it in proportion, all right? Additionally, you can do more if you go to edit and transform. You can see their scale, rotation, skew, distort. Distort will allow you to kind of like skew it a bit into the form. So however you want this to look, you can use the distort to kind of fit it in your composition and scene. Okay, when I'm done, I'm going to hit return. And now I've got this point of collage kind of working in here. All right, so some basic steps, grabbing images from Google, making sure they're the right size, bringing in these layers, masking out the background, deleting the background, kind of bringing it in. That will be step 1 of this part of the tutorial, and we'll move on to the other sections in a minute.